Hello, friends, and welcome to the Driving Loaded podcast, where two former Army Rangers provide insight to their life post-military, a unique perspective on life, family, and careers. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. All right, and we are back. We've been off for last couple of weeks, basically. Had some things going on in the family, and Jordan was on vacation, and one thing led to another. But we are back for our 15th episode of Driving Loaded podcast. I am Pete, and Jordan is on the other end of this country.
What up?
How are things going?
Good. Vacation was, I think we put too much pressure on vacation to solve our problems. So that definitely is in effect a little bit, but it was nice to unplug for a bit and, enjoy time with my wife. And, I went and ran a lot, and we went to, where did we go? Disneyland for a day. And then we went over to Laguna Beach for a couple of days. And I enjoy running on the beach when it's nice out. So that was awesome to be able to do that for a couple of days. And then just hang out and really have no plans, which was cool. We had the resort we stayed at was right on the ocean on the Pacific there. And that was cool. We actually saw dolphins from our balcony and whales out there and pelicans and sea otters. So it was just a cool time just to drink coffee, hang out, and have no plans to do anything really.
Yeah, I remember the picture that you sent me. I was quite jealous. No, it's good to have that, to do that every now and then. That would drive my wife crazy because she's very much a planner. So, yeah, I do like to, be able to just relax and just kind of do nothing, because we really don't do that nowadays. We're busy 24/7, seems like.
Yeah, my wife's a planner too for the most part, but this time I'd surprised her with the whole trip, and I had most of it planned out, roughly at least what we're going to be doing, where we're going to be, and that kind of stuff. But I intentionally planned a day of doing nothing, so it was a planned intentionality of doing nothing to maybe just unplug, relax, and it was actually kind of funny. So I was doing a better job at just doing nothing than my wife, and I guess I did get up and go for a run and whatnot, and that was more for my enjoyment and to just find some peace and stretched on the beach for a while. But midday, my wife's she was going stir crazy. I don't know what to do. I have to do something. And then usually that's me where I'm kind of driving her nuts. So it was interesting in that regard. And then two, I found there was a part of us, because we're so busy with kids and with life and careers and whatever else, when you finally get a moment where you don't have to do anything, it's almost like your body doesn't know what to do with it. So you're almost left with this weird feeling. So it's not quite even relaxing because, we didn't plan a long enough trip. So day 2, 3, 4, it got better. But there was definitely a day in there was we kind of looked at each other the next day, what happened yesterday? We just totally out of sync. And she's like, yeah, can we get that day back?
Yeah, it's hard for us to do nothing because we feel like we're missing out on something, or we should be doing something, or I get that way as well sometimes. There are times though where I'm like, I don't want to do anything. I'm tired. Your mind is exhausted, your body's exhausted, and it's like, man, I got to take a break. And I think there's a lot of people that could benefit from just relaxing and doing nothing.
I agree. Hey, I have to throw this disclaimer out there though. I want to talk about Disneyland for a second here. So if you're a Disneyland hater, I'm sorry. I wasn't quite anti prior to going, but I was kind of I think the hype is too much. People, scream about the happiest place on earth, all this junk, but I couldn't quite get onto that team quite, readily, as quick as other people would do it, I guess. And I think part of it is my history with vacations to that kind of environment. I had a lot of kids, 15 siblings. So you go to Six Flags Great America, you have ton of tickets to buy and all the food and whatnot. So we never ate at the park. We always, had these cracker packs with 6 crackers and some Capri Suns and maybe a P&J. And we parked at the back of the parking lot. It was always hot, miserable, and we walked a ton. So it was never a fun time, honestly. I hated waiting in lines. And so my idea of going to a theme park as adults was kind of lunacy, honestly. But my wife and I spent a day at Disneyland, and it was actually a fun time. I think because the way they set it up there is you're in a different reality for a while. So it actually gives you the ability to just not be an adult for a day. And that was really cool, just the environment, the ambiance they create there. And then there was some rides that I was like the new Star Wars movie or Star Wars ride, and I'd never seen any Star Wars to date. Like I've never seen a single episode. Actually, I did now since post that trip. But anyways, we went on this ride, and there was a lot of hype about it, and we luckily got on the thing, and it was cool. Like the way they do it is like you think you're on a you're on in a line, and all of a sudden you're like on the ride for a moment, and then you're off of it. Like it's an experience. People are yelling at you. Like there was a section where you're like they put you in these lines, like like toe the line in basic training. So
Mhm.
you're standing there when you're opposing people, and like you're in line, but people are like interacting. The characters are interacting with you, and this probably this 16, 17-year-old girl is smiling because they're yelling and a lot of activity happening, and she's smiling on the standing on the line facing us. And this lady gets in her face like a drill sergeant and starts yelling at her. She's like, "What is funny? What is funny about red?" Just goes off on this girl, and it was like it was cool because it's part of the ride, and it really sets the tone, and it makes another element of just being on an amusement park was cool. So it's totally different than my childhood that I remembered, and I'd never been to Disneyland as a kid, so it was an interesting experience. And I'll say like I'm not 100% on the happiest place on earth because camping in the mountains is pretty freaking awesome, but it was
Yeah.
a cool experience, that's for sure.
Yeah, we went. I've gone once when Kaya was 3. We went for a week. I had a blast. We did a lot of rides. Met all the princesses and queens and whatever mermaids and all that stuff. And I no, I mean, I had a great time. We didn't just, we hit up a bunch of different places in Orlando, and I did like Legoland. I'm a big fan of Legoland. So I had fun with it, but I agree it's not the happiest place on earth, especially when it's hot. In Florida, it can be really miserable and
Sure.
muggy. So, but yeah, I'd rather be in a mountain somewhere camping and with a fly rod, you know, fishing and whatnot. That's to me, that's relaxing. I mean, that'd be kind of like doing nothing. I guess my version of doing nothing. But
No, that's cool. I agree. Like when I go in the mountains and we camp, I just do random crap, like build little contraptions for the fire to like hang my coffee pot off of, and
Mhm.
cool chairs and just whatever, just to stay busy. But it's like it's a fun relaxation busy for me where I'm actually like decompressing. I'm still doing something, but it's different.
Yeah, it's just being in the woods to me is quite therapeutic. I enjoy it.
Um, I want to quick touch on, obviously you were solo last week. You did a quick bit about some family stuff that was going on and some deaths in the family, and the realness of life in general and how you dealt with for your daughter and whatnot. How is everything going at home right now with everything that's been happening?
Well, and I don't think I told you this. Yesterday, my ex-wife's grandpa died.
Oh, geez, no, I didn't hear that. Sorry, man.
Yeah, so I mean, I knew him, and he's a really good man. He lost his wife last year. So Kaya's great grandmother died last year, and then yesterday her great grandpa died, and then last week her grandpa died. So she's had three deaths within a 12-month time span. And the one that hit her the worst was the grandpa that lived next door to them, and he would see her almost every day. He would pick her up from school, drop her off, or bring her to swim practice, soccer practice, all of that. So that one was much harder for her. I think she's actually coping quite well, and so I I guess it's going good. Despite all the things that have happened. It was really rough there for the few days that as they were going through, like he had some sort of pulmonary fibrosis in the lungs. Her grandpa did, and then he went to the doctor thinking he just had pneumonia. Well, the doctor's like, "Yo, dude, you got a couple days and you're done." And
Mm.
so he was like, "Okay." And so he requested that Kaya, that he say goodbye to her, and that was the only person that he requested be there. I mean, other than his son and his wife and whatnot, but that was a very emotional time for her. And as soon as he was done saying goodbye to her, I was there at the hospital. I picked her up and then got her some ice cream, and we went home and ate ice cream and watched some movies and kind of try to get her mind off of it, and which worked a little bit. But then at night when everything calmed down, of course she's just losing it once again. So Very difficult because I've never gone through that as far as, her being so close to somebody and them dying. So I was never really close to my grandparents. So it didn't really phase me or affect me when they died. But for her, it was, a learning experience because she was so close to him and she meant a lot to him and he meant a lot to her. And it was very evident that she knew that he loved her a lot. So because she cared for him, deeply, and she even wrote him a note, um, thinking that he's going to come and somehow pick it up. So
Mhm.
we're gonna arrange to have somebody write a note and then put it in her room. So we're gonna play that game for a little while at least. But yeah, it was something different, man. I mean, it hurt me a lot just because you see your kid crying. I wasn't crying because of because of his death. I was, sad because of my child is sad, and so it's difficult for her because she's 10 years old and she doesn't understand. She's just like, why did he have to die? Why did he have to die? And I'm like, other than, hey, that's life. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's part of life. We're all going to die at some point. So I didn't, I wasn't much I could say. I just tried to comfort her the best that I could. And I think, things are much better now, but I think she'll have her days where she'll, be quite emotional. She's an emotional kid to begin with, but so yeah, it's been a roller coaster the last couple of weeks.
Sure. Well, and it was, in hindsight, thinking about it, I know you well enough by now, but you're talking about the dash, and it was, you're dealing with trauma and in a horrible situation. But I was thinking, I'm like, it actually is kind of cool though, in a sense, like you're talking about living your dash to the collective, right? But all the
Mhm.
while, I'm seeing you actually walk out the dash in that moment. You're dealing with real trauma with your daughter, and I can feel, as we talked about offline, like you had emotion and you were hurting for your daughter, and you were doing your best ability to support her. And you're not a mental health counselor or whatever, grief counselor, but you're a loving father that's hurting for your daughter, and you're walking along with her. And there's no great answer there, but as long as you're doing the best with the tools at your disposal and the resources you have, and you're supportive, and giving her the shoulder she needs and the ear she needs and all that kind of stuff, is more or less kind of what I was asking about. And I saw that, and I'm like, that's really cool to see, like, you talking about it, but you're walking that out daily. In that event, it was from a brother, so to speak. Like, that was cool to see. It made me want to be a better person because of your example you're leading for your daughter.
Well, and I appreciate that. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I'm very glad that I'm able to be there for her in that way because first 4 years of her life, I was gone. I was either training or I was deployed. So I missed a lot of things in her early years, and now it's anytime she has anything going on, I'm there. I'm always there, and we still have lunch once a week, and so. Um, because I want her to see that, hey, I do want to be a part of your life no matter what, whether, through thick or thin. And I'm always here. May not have the best answer, but, we'll get through this together one way or another.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, and I think you've obviously learned from the times you didn't have, and you're I'm not saying you're trying to make it up now, but you're being very intentional to ensure that, like, yes, that was my life, that I had to live that lifestyle because of my occupation and the service you chose to do. But yeah, it's cool to see you're stepping up now and doing the right things and being a good dad. And it has a ripple effect. It doesn't just stop with your family. People see that, and I'm seeing it. I'm a better dad because of actions you're taking. So I guess, yeah, keep it up. And I appreciate you being open and transparent to let us glean in from your happenings.
Yeah, absolutely. We're supposed to be examples for others. And just like Levi, he was an inspiration and still is an inspiration to me. And everybody that I see, I tell, I tell them like, hey, listen to that podcast because of him. And so I think that as a society, we can really use all these people that we see in our lives doing good things. We can use that as fuel to for ourselves when we're kind of in a rut, or we're feeling like we're not doing enough, or we need to kind of step up our game.
Yeah, that's spot on for sure. Which kind of leads, and I guess good, or whatever you want to call that, like the segue
Yeah.
into like this week's topic of, um, I when we were in California, my wife and I, we one of the days we walked down on this beach called, I think it was the Strands Beach or something. It was south of Laguna Beach, north of Dana Point. I could
Hmm.
between the two. And I had asked the concierge desk, like, what are some of the cool beaches to go to? And he had recommended that one. And anyways, you park at top, and then there's like this long series of steps and sidewalks that you take through this really ritzy neighborhood to get down. I think the neighborhood's called the Strands, and then you walk down to the beach. And as you're walking down, you're seeing, the rooftops of these houses, and you get closer, and you're seeing like the magnitude of these houses. And I actually didn't check the prices, but I'm guessing 5 million starting, most likely, or higher.
Yeah.
Um, and it was, we're looking at them, and as we walked a few miles both directions, and there's pelicans flying, and it was an amazing day. Shorts and a t-shirt, and in February, and having a great time, good conversation, and just feeling really good about life in general. And that was like the highlight of the entire trip, was walking with my wife on that beach. um, it was funny at the beginning. I'm like, man, I wish I was running right now, because not a huge fan of walking. I got short legs, okay.
Hey.
But anyways, so we're marveling at these houses, and we're daydreaming for a while, and like, oh, it'd be awesome to have this, and I love that porch, and this pool, and we're in our together collectively, like, brainstorming what our house would look like if we had that kind of funding, right?
Hmm.
And we got done with the walk, and it was great. It was phenomenal. We finished. We walked back up the steps, and my wife's like, "Hey, let's stop for a second, catch our breath, whatever." We turned around and kind of were hanging over the guardrail and seeing these houses again, and it was weird because in my mind I was thinking, man, it'd be awesome to have these, and I was building this like atmosphere in my mind or spirit about, what would it take to own this house and live there, and that's where my family's going to grow up, on this beach, and have that view, and be able to run every day, and that'd be like a dream of mine. And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden, like, I got this stomach ache and this weird, overwhelming sense of like anxiety for a second, and it was like, could you imagine having to support like the bills and to be able to sustain life at that house, and how expensive it would be, and all the realities of that came to fruition, right? It was at the top of my mind, and it actually stressed me out. So it took my, high of life, and just trampled it in a moment. And I got to thinking, like, that's so crazy that just the thought of that can make a guy cripple with like fear and anxiety.
Hmm.
And the more I kind of sat back, and I was reading some books over the time we were there, and just kind of reflecting about life in general, and I came to this realization that I think in my mind, the reason I had that fear is because I got this fixed mindset that this is the lot in life I've been given. I grew up, in a blue collar type environment, and that's my cap, that's my ceiling. I can't get any higher than that.
Hmm.
So when I saw something that was out of my realm right now, I wasn't able to actually see myself there. I dreamed about it. It was like a dream, but that's all
Hmm.
it was. Didn't visualize, didn't see myself going through the motions in life to get there. And so because of that, I got anxious about the feeling of trying to go there, right? Because I didn't go through the motions and the right steps to, secure that mindset to be able to actually live that lifestyle, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's interesting. I've caught myself daydreaming about, nice place and all that other stuff, but the reality is that you've got to have a large sum of money coming in every year in order to maintain that kind of lifestyle. And I think that, I mean, unless you're just one of those people that it's easy for you to make $7 million a year, whatever. But I think that comes with a lot of stressors, and that's why a lot of people have a lot of issues, physically, because they're so overwhelmed and stressed about. Well, I'm not going to be able to make my mortgage, which I don't even know what mortgage would be on a $5 million house. Like, that's insane.
and so I agree with what you're saying. Like, I'm not even pushing towards like the financial piece where I need to have a house that big. But it
Hmm.
was the fact of the matter is my mind couldn't even function at that level. Like, it got stressed out very quickly in that sense. And that was kind of weird. I don't typically go down that negative path. And I started to realize, like, how many other areas in life do I stress myself out because of my fixed mindset? So you talked about people that am I gonna make my mortgage? So if you're living your entire life just to make ends meet, you're always going to be stressed out. But if you're living for a higher purpose, a higher calling, you're pushing to the next level, and your mind is always growing and thriving to get to the next level, the paying of the mortgage, the paying of the car, all that stuff is a side effect of doing what you're supposed to be doing anyways. So you're not dwelling on the paying of the mortgage. The
Hmm.
mortgage gets paid because you're doing the right things.
Yeah.
You're bettering yourself, you're bettering your situation through education, through, working hard in your job. And so kind of what I wanted to kind of touch base on is Riverbanks. Uh, the reason I say Riverbanks is because, obviously you're big into fishing now, and I love the outdoors and rivers and that kind of stuff. And we have a river by our house, and every time I go by that river, it's slightly different. The riverbanks are sometimes they actually get bigger. Sometimes they usually it's getting eroded away, but depending on the season, how swollen they are with runoff from the mountains and that kind of stuff, they shrink and swell. And kind of like life, it's always evolving, it's always moving. But what are we doing in the process? Are we allowing life to kind of just push us around, or are we making decisions to allow us to dictate some of the things that are happening around us and evolving with life?
Yeah, as you're talking about that, I mean, we see that here. We have several rivers. We have the Chattahoochee, and with all the rain that we've had, I mean, it's insanely high. And we have a creek. I call it a creek. It's not really a river, but it feeds into the Hooch. And I drive over it, or I pass it every day going into work. And I even there I see the changes that you're talking about. I see, some days you can kind of see this little island or a little sandbar in the middle there, and then sometimes you can't see it at all, and sometimes it's nothing but just a brown cloud of raging water coming through. And when you and I talked about it offline, I sat there and thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, that's definitely true. And all right, minor difficulties there for whatever reason. Murphy came out. We were talking about the riverbanks, and
Little island on the Chattahoochee, I think.
well, it's actually I don't even know what that little creek is called. It feeds into the Hooch, but I see it there. And then I was talking about, am I doing that in life right now as I've transitioned out of the military? Am I doing just enough to get by? Am I trying to advance myself? I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of, I guess, going through the motions. I mean, I'm going to school, I'm working and whatnot, but I don't know.
Well, I think you just stop and like step back and actually define like what you're talking about. So like going through what motions, and to kind of break down like fixed mindset versus growth mindset. When I think about those, and there's a litany of different examples of explanations or definitions of those, but to me, when you have a fixed mindset, and the way I understand it and the way I've been kind of taught or whatever, is you have certain talents that you're born with, certain skill sets, traits that are inherent to your DNA in a sense. So there's a ceiling that you put yourself into where you cannot get better than this threshold because this is what I have. So like kind of going back to that idea of my lot in life. I've been given this. This is the hand I've been dealt, and then so be it. Where if you have the growth mindset, it's through hard work, determination, and just sheer grit. You have the ability to do, like, there's no ceiling all of a sudden. You have the ability to put the work in to become a better version of you every single day. So I think right now you're feeding yourself, you're feeding your soul, you're feeding your physical body, you're feeding your mind with college education and other things like Project Healing Waters. So I don't think you're fitting into that, but
Mhm.
I think in the grand scheme of things, even with the fixed mindset or the growth mindset, you can also have that rut mentality where you kind of just start checking the box. So you're doing things, but not doing them maybe for the right reasons. So you're becoming almost callous to life, just going through the motions. And
Mhm.
that's a toxic place to be as well. So I think it's kind of a balance, but
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I think that, I don't want to say there's a lot of pressure on people, but you transition out of the military, and then you're kind of like left with, well, what do I do now? I've
Mhm.
been doing something for 16 years, and then all of a sudden you just stop doing it. So um, the only thing I knew to do was, hey, I'm gonna work, because that's what I've done all my life. I've worked, and so I'm working at the welding and design shop, and we're actually trying to get bigger and bigger with the work that we're doing. So we're trying to expand the business, and I'm a big part of it because it's just myself and the boss. And so through all the hard work that myself and he have put in over the last year almost now, it's paid off, because we're gaining more customers, and we're getting contracts for work to be done, a dollar amount, to where like, hey, we're going to have this, this amount of work and this amount of money for this project. So I think that's kind of the where the snowball effect comes in, and we're, once we get started, I think we can actually expand quite a bit, and to the point where we're going to have to hire people, and then I'm basically going to be running all the operations of it. So um, yeah, I mean, I think that in that aspect, we are, I myself am evolving in that way.
So, a question then. So, I'm actually reading this book called Simon's. It's by Simon Sinek, and it's I think called The Power of Why. And so you kind of stop and ask what you're doing and why you're doing it. So it brings things to a different perspective when you're doing things. So I'd ask you now, and I know your boss probably listens to this, and I know you have a lot of respect for him and what he's done and what you guys are doing.
Hmm.
But when you step back and say, why am I going through these motions? Why am I helping him do these things? That might be your why. Like maybe you're super fulfilled and you have flexibility, and that's what you want to do. That's awesome.
Hmm.
But have you stopped long enough to say why are you doing what you're doing now? Like is this a you know me, the the means to the end or whatever you want to call that? But
Hmm.
have you thought through that process at all for yourself?
Yes, I have, because I mean, I'm on a timeline here where I'm living right now. So once Kaya goes to college, we plan on moving away from here. So I'm trying to figure out where all that fits in as far as staying here, working for that period, and then what do I do when I move to Texas? Because that's where we're going to be headed after this. So
By where your family's from?
mhm.
Okay. So will
Yep.
your wife retire then from her job too then, or I don't
Hmm.
know what? Oh,
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I mean, she could find something similar out there. I mean, she's got a, bachelor's degree, and she wants to get her master's, and so she'd be able to, she'd be open to a lot of different jobs in that area. So it wouldn't be hard to find a job out there.
gotcha. And that's kind of to me anyways, like if you stop and think like from the growth to fixed, if you have like your end objective is you want to do this. So if it's I want to get this job and I'm going to get this job so I can have this amount of income because my family wants to do X, Y, Z through the year. We want to have this kind of house and it's because it's going to make us happy. And this is why. So you kind of define life a little bit and then you kind of reverse engineer backwards plan as in the military, right? So
Hmm.
what is it going to take to get there? What kind of financial means do I need? What kind of job would produce that? Or what kind of company can I start? So I think there's a lot of different elements that come into this. And then within those constraints or those, values, I think you have the people that have the fixed mindset or the growth mindset. And to me, anyways, there are some people that have God given abilities that are just brilliantly smart and they don't have to hardly apply themselves at all. And life seemingly comes easy. There are, and what I'm going to call an anomaly that does happen. But I don't think that's the standard. I think most people might have a skill set, or they do have a skill set. They do have talents that are they're God given, but they have to be honed. They have to be worked on. And to me, if you have that growth mindset applied, parallel with the skills you have, I think there is no limit to that. And so that's where I ask the questions like, why are you going through these motions now with this employer? Is it, what does that mean? So I'm glad you're actually stopping now to think through that because you can start planting seeds for when you do move to Texas. And that's not too far away for sure.
No, no, it's not. I mean, she's 10 years old right now, so
Hmm.
um, yeah, it'll be here before we know it. So I have to figure out what's going to happen after we move. Because I mean, I'm going to have to do something. So I'm not just going to be able to sit at the house and do nothing.
Um, Something that I've kind of noticed too with myself, just using myself as an example or guinea pig, is um, I can even have a trajectory I'm trying to put myself on and try and do certain things, but I never had like an end goal in mind. So I was just, there were good things I was doing, but I didn't really know, and I still don't have it 100% defined for sure, but I'm getting clear to why I'm doing what I'm doing. So when I have a clear like why, it's helping me then through the daily, things that I'm doing. So there may be days where I know there's gonna be a lot of stress, but I can stop and say, okay, this week there's these things going on. And so like I started meditating a little bit and nothing crazy like you had mentioned, like slaughtering cats and that kind of stuff,
Chickens and whatnot.
sacrificing to the gods or whatever. Um, but even stopping and meditating on the skill sets that I have, where are my shortcomings at? And then envisioning, like literally sitting there and stopping and thinking about like that house scenario. If that's a dream of mine, I'm going to stop and think about that. That's the why.
Mhm.
And I'm going to envision myself being at that house, owning that house, living in that house, swimming in that infinity pool, whatever. And I'm not saying that is my why necessarily, but it's helping me have a clearer focus through today then to say, okay, I'm fighting for this. So all these battles right now I'm fighting, they're worth it. And this is why. And then I can stop and even on a daily level, stop and reverse engineer that day. And that's where I kind of went to the meditating piece because to me, I was getting stressed out pretty easily over stuff that usually wouldn't stress me out. But it started compounding one thing after the next. And I was never really like pulling things off.
Mhm.
And now I start my day out by meditating or reflecting, or, I work out, been working out, and then I do some kind of reflecting, meditating, whatever. And it's given me so much power, so much focus throughout the day. And things that were stressing me out they're nothing again. So I've got perspective back. And uh, that to me has eliminated a lot of stress from my life and I feel way better, more energetic. Um, so I don't know, there's a lot of small things that have been happening since I started deploying those practices.
No, that's good. I'm interested in the meditation piece, and like we just said, we're not talking about like you're sitting in a room or whatever, and got your fingers, like the weird meditation
Mm,
thing going on. Yeah, the om stuff. Because if you ask people what define or what is the definition of meditation, is it thinking? Is it, people say don't think, people say don't think about anything. And I'm like, that for me, that's impossible. I can't, like when I'm asleep, I'm thinking about something because I'm dreaming. I have dreams every night. And when I wake up, I'm thinking about something. I can't just like blanket it out. So that's,
so So for me, and I'm not a guru here. I think we should probably find a guru and interview them. But to me,
yeah.
and what I've been doing anyways, is I've been Googling on YouTube or whatever, like different guided meditations. And the ones there's a couple that I like that aren't off the wall, sacrificing cats, doing the thing. And maybe I'll get there. I don't know. I'll get to that level potentially. But the ones that I find very successful for me anyways, is the ones that, uh, make you think about certain things. So like if it's your breathing, think about your breathing and be very intentional about what is your breath doing right now? Is it, are you stopping for a second and effectively breathing and then going through your body parts? Like you're starting with your feet, what do the muscles in your feet feel like right now? And you get very intentional about thinking about your body. And it's weird how you can actually, I don't know how to explain this perfectly, but as you think about it and you give them attention, it's almost like I ran one day like 6 miles or whatever, and my knees were really sore. My right ankle especially was sore, and I stopped there and I stretched for a bit and I really like decompressed through this meditation, and it actually like lessened the tension I had. It was relaxed, and all of a sudden when I stretched again, uh, the strain was pretty much gone. So it's I think the way they focus the energy of your thoughts on certain body parts, on your breath, or about the things you're going after for the day. So if you want to have successful phone calls with sales meetings, like think about those sales calls and the stress that's going to happen and envision that in a positive energy, to positive light that it's going to be successful. And I think it just brings positive momentum, positive energy with you. And I'm not all into the whole energy, one breath of life, all that kind of stuff, but I think there's an element of this stuff that actually does help a guy. Maybe just me, I don't know.
No, I think, and I've heard of a wide range of things like that. Basically taking a lot of the things that you're saying and compiling them into one thought, I guess. And the key word is tension,
Hmm.
because you just said that you're releasing that tension. So when you do something that relaxes you, like you're gonna focus on your breathing. I've heard that before. If you focus on relaxing, releasing the tension of your body throughout the day, because there's things in our lives that, like today, there was a guy that walked through the crosswalk and I drove behind him. I wasn't even close to the dude. And, I was going to lunch. And as soon as I pass him, I get the
The full
thumbs
bird
up.
salute.
Yeah, I got the one finger salute. And I'm like, dude, what? Like, he's got, and that right there can build up into a very, high anxiety, if you want to call it that, or but you're building up that tension in your body.
Hmm.
Or you can just be like, yeah, whatever, dude. But throughout the day, any of the stressors of life, stressors of, sales call, whatever it is, customers, blah, 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 you name it, your boss, coworkers, family, yada, yada, it builds tension in your body. and that can actually cause ailments in your body, like a lot of stress. People have a lot of heartburn, and you can burn a hole in your stomach with tons and tons of stress. So you're kind of doing it to yourself. But if you reverse that, you'll find that, like you said, I feel much better.
So if you tell somebody, this is a hypothetical, I'm gonna ask you a question. If you tell somebody, say, hey, tomorrow, so you got a big interview coming up and you know you're gonna bomb it. So you tell them, hey, tomorrow or tonight after the interview, I want you to tell me that you're awesome and you killed it, or like some positive affirmations. Even though you told them and they repeated it back to you and they were sincere, but you told them to do it. Does it affect you?
You, that you told them to do that? You
Yeah,
told
you
them to
told
do
you
something?
like you prepped the objective. You said, "Hey, tonight I'm gonna have a horrible evening. I'm gonna come home and be just maybe your wife. Like, hey, tonight I'm gonna be very anxious when I get home because this is gonna happen today. So when I get home, I want you to remind me that you're an awesome individual. You're killing life. Like all these positive affirmations. You told her to tell you that. You get home, the day is crappy. You just as planned, right? As anxious as all get out. When you get home, you're on fire. Your world's on fire. You get home, your wife gives you a hug and says all these things you told her to tell you.
Mhm.
Do those words still not have power?
Absolutely, they have power, because I think they do, because the person that you love is telling you those things. I think it's a little different if it comes from some random person, but if it comes from the person that you love, I mean, I think that that could make your day better.
So, and I think there's definitely a level or degree of who tells you and why the impact is as important as it is. But even from a complete stranger, so let's pull it out of the family situation. A
Hmm.
complete stranger on the street tells you that, hey, Pete, you're killing life. You're an amazing dude. Like, I love what you're doing right now and keep up the good work. Does that not have an effect on your psyche?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've had people that I haven't talked to in years, and then they message me and they say, "Hey, man, like really love the podcast. You guys are doing great things. Look forward to the next episode." I mean, that right there is a little bit of nos, a little bit of nitrous in the day, because you're like, man, that's awesome, because I was able to affect someone else, and someone actually is taking the time to listen to me talk. So, I love it. I love to hear that kind of stuff.
And that's where I'm going with this conversation. And in my mind is we can be our worst enemies. So when it comes to the mindset and what we're trying to accomplish in life, and a lot of it, pull back to like a career situation. A lot of times in a vocation, we're competing with other people that are almost as qualified or even more qualified than we are. So when you go to interview, if you have this defeatist mindset when you walk in there, people feel that. You can, I mean, think about it. Some of your sergeant or staff sergeant board or whatever you like, or whatever random boards you had to go through the military, or maybe you're on the other end of that where you're actually on a panel where you're interviewing people for a promotion, whatever. I remember my E5 board walking in there. I'm like, I was scared. I was timid, whatever. Like, and then they feed on that energy and they keep just poking at it because they know it's there.
Oh
But if
yeah.
you walk in there and you're confident and you own your space, to me, anyways, it's like you carry that energy with you, and it's projected onto people in your room, your space, whatever you're doing, the interview setting. So to me, it's like if we're not telling ourselves the best version of what we should be seeing or doing, and we're always the negative feedback loop is happening. What do you expect that's going to be the result of that? Good or bad, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be big thumbs down. If you're yeah, like I, I brought a kid to a board. I say a kid, but it was like a last minute that morning. My top sarge was like, "Hey, you're taking so and so to the board." I'm like, "What?" So thankfully, my first sergeant went in there and prepped and told the CSM over there, the sergeant major. That's the what, I can't even think of it now, but he's the dude in charge of the board. And basically, I got a get out of jail free card. And because I knew the dude was going to follow it, he walks in there and it was a crap show from the get go. Like he bombed it hard, and they just like full auto just decimated this dude. Yeah, it was bad. It was brutal. But it started out crappy. If had he walked in there, because he walked in there and he was 8 up 6 ways from Sunday, and so but he himself didn't set himself up for success either. So
Well, and that's where I'm going with this conversation is like your mindset dictates so much of our surroundings. And I remember watching this this video that went viral around a lot of military channels on Facebook and whatnot. There was this I'm guessing it was like an E5 board or Soldier of the Year board, one of those kind of boards. And this I think he was a specialist. He walks in and the chair is on its side. And so there's probably the first sergeants and the sergeant major in the middle, right? The chair's on its side. This tool decides that he was going to literally sit in this chair like, as it stood on the ground. So he's going to sit sideways, like laying down on the ground. So like, we're trying to train leaders and raise the next generation of leaders up. So what would a reasonable and prudent person do in that situation? Probably fix the
Pick,
chair,
yeah, pick
right?
the chair up.
Maybe ask permission potentially. I don't know. Like, depending on your personality type, you might ask, permission to, fix this chair or whatever. But you're going to do that. This kid was so jacked up walking into that. His mindset was so broken prior to, he decided to be that clown and try to sit in that chair laying down on the floor.
Yeah,
And that was his reality.
yeah, you're a no-go right there. You're a no-go.
Ranger, you are no go at this station.
Yeah, just walk
Oh
out the
man.
board. Just do an about face and walk out the board. You're done. Like, I
But
mean,
but we laugh about this clown right there. I know people have watched that video and maybe we should post it on one of our feeds, but
I haven't seen it yet.
I'm gonna get in front of you. So you're gonna laugh your butt off. But I'll say this. We laugh about that, but in private and other closed door settings, we all have those moments of idiocracy or whatever. What's the word? Idiot something. Idiot. So yeah, going through those motions, like how many, I just did it right there. See how many times in life do we have these moments that we allow ourselves to get beat up mentally? So when we get to a stressful situation, the outcome is we don't really know exactly what's happening because of the stress that's already been, and we're not speaking the right message to ourselves prior to entering that situation.
Yeah, definitely. I think that, when we wake up in the morning, we should, not let what happened yesterday defeat us, because you can't do anything about what happened yesterday. You can only change what's happening today. So, if you're like, well, I tried to lay down, or, I didn't fix that chair, but today I'm going to fix the chair and I'm going to move forward and not be that dumbass. So that's the way I look at it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, we were watching, so this weekend we had 3 soccer games, because my daughter started playing on a travel team, and I joke about it because this is what I heard in the military. It's like, you're looking to your squad leader, platoon sergeant, first sergeant, or whatever, like, hey, looking for some advice or some pointers or whatever. And we had this one guy who was like, yeah, just don't suck. Like, okay. So that's what kind of we went. That was the theme of the weekend. Like, hey, Kai, don't suck. So, but no, she did well. She did pretty good. She just needs to learn to be a little more aggressive. But they actually did win their age group or their class for the tournament. So good for them.
No, that is awesome. And so, that's with kids. That's a good like pulling back from the adult thing and going to the kids. We always kind of break things down a little bit easier, more Barney style with kids, right? Crawl, walk, run.
Mhm.
With kids, what do you do with that? Don't suck. Like, there's nothing you can really do with that mentality. But if that's the goal, but hey, today I want you to run a little bit harder. So that's the piece you're going to give them today, and remind them like, hey, you're a phenomenal soccer player. You doesn't matter the outcome of the game. Like, I'm not talking about everybody gets a trophy, but reminding them in their mind that they are able to do this, and then give them the skills, the mental coaching, and then by the time they go deploy it on the field, it's totally different. They're not stomachs are not knots. They're not stressed out over like, no, they're ready to go. They're ready to hit the field and run. So that's interesting. You bring that not suck thing up.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I do try to, encourage her, like, hey, look, you do great here, you do great there. It's like, just put in 110%. We don't really care at the end of the day whether you win or you lose. We want you to go out there and play the game. Even if you're winning or even if you're losing, don't change that. Like, you're there to play the game, and if you're losing, don't just give up and then just, play like crap. You still have to fight, always stay in the fight. And so what doesn't help is all the yelling parents on the sideline, all these morbidly obese parents telling their kids to run. I'm like, dude, you can't walk down the field without having a heart attack. Stop, shut your mouth. So
Kills
There
me.
yeah, there is that, and I'm like, "Don't tell your kid to run because you can't run. Stop. You need to
Well,
hustle."
and you think about it, I mean, it's a sad reality. A lot of times the kids almost always look like their parents, my mini version of them. So if they're obese parents, a lot of times the kids are obese because it's the lifestyle. Like at home, you're eating bad foods, you're not exercising, like all these things are happening for the most part. So on the field, you're telling them to run, but you haven't had them run all week. I'm sorry, you can't just get out in the field and run. You have had to do that throughout the week,
Mhm.
or it's not coming on the field.
Yeah, and, we bought a soccer goal for Kaya, and I wanna go out there, and I don't want it to be like, I'm sitting there drilling her and whatnot. I want her to have fun with it while, us playing soccer in the backyard, but I want her to, like, get something out of that. Like, hey, we're gonna do some sprints, we're gonna do some drills, but we're gonna play soccer. I want it to be about practice, but also to be about a bonding time and experience. But I want it to be a positive experience instead of like, oh my god, I gotta go play soccer with my dad because that's not what I want.
And we, speaking of that, we have a park up by our house, I think it's like a 0.75 track around the whole thing. And there's like disc golf and there's soccer fields and some dog parks. And it's not utilized a lot by a lot of people. So it's kind of nice. And it's like a minute from my house walking. So, anyways, I went up with the dogs and was going to go for a few mile run. And it was like raining slash snowing. But sometimes I like that, like to like be miserable for a bit. And then I get to go take
Yeah.
a hot shower. Like I enjoy that sometimes. And so I was going up there and going to go for a run. And I saw this like en route I ran up to the park. So I was running past his house and I saw this dad kind of yelling at his kids to get in the car, and they were getting their baseball bags out and stuff. I'm thinking, oh, they got to practice or a game or whatever. But no, they went up to the park where I was going, and I've seen him up there before, but whatever. But it was snowing and raining out, and these girls are miserable, and he's out there yelling for them to go and do this stuff, and you can just tell like they don't want to be there,
Mhm.
and he's forcing them to do it. And I'm like, I get being a strong parent and like doing these things, but it was just like I was miserable for them. I'm like, ooh man,
Yeah.
you're not
Struggle.
you're not building a lot of like positive the positive mindset for this sport is not going to be very secure in their mind because it's going to be like they're going to attach that to like I was always forced to do these things. Like I think what
Mhm.
you're saying is spot on.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, I did hear a lot of parents, yelling at their kids and whatnot, and this and that and the other. But I did actually hear several parents, whether they were winning or not winning, they were trying to reinforce um, their child, like, hey, yeah, that was good, good hustle, like reinforcing them and telling them, like, hey, they're doing good, even they may be losing, but they're still making good plays, and they're still putting forth their 110%. That is what they need to hear, because if all you're doing is yelling at them, like when I used to race motocross, I would see parents out there laying into their 4 and 5 year old, and I'm like, this dude's gonna hate you. You just wait till you get into old folks home. He's gonna, yeah, you're done, son.
You're
But
stealing your snack pack every day.
exactly, and it's like, why make this thing miserable for them? Because they're gonna grow up and they're gonna be like, I don't ever want to ride a dirt bike again. And this should be fun. You should not be out there miserable and hating it and doing it just because your dad's making you do it. And I get that there's points where kids like, I don't want to do this, and you have to tell them, like, look, hey, this is what you signed up for. Like, at least see it through. Like, you're gonna have bad days. That's part of it.
Well, I think there's a balance. I think you can, if you're, like I said earlier, reasonable and prudent dad or father, like you're going to see the times in which you should instill like the resolve in their stomach. Like you should challenge them and strengthen them. That's a good parent. So you have to go through some challenges to get stronger. So I think you can't protect them from everything. You can't, put a bubble around them. You have to be pushing them, but there's definitely a limit. And I think, especially with sports, unless your kid's going pro, maybe back off some of the screaming from the sidelines, and honestly, even then, probably back off.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, we had, I mean, several of the parents, I've had the same conversation. Like, look, our kids aren't going to go to the, MLS, Major League Soccer. Like, it's just not going to happen. A lot of these kids, that they're going to rely on sports to get a, scholarship through school. And I think that's a good thing to teach them. Like, hey, if you do really well in this sport and you're naturally talented in it, go with it. But this isn't. You're not going to go to the Major League Soccer. You might, definitely give it a shot, but focus on your education. And this is a good sport to be in. You can take something away from that. Have fun with it.
yeah, that's spot on. I guess pulling back to like our lives and people like in our demographic, if you will. Um, some of the things I think we should be challenging each other, ourselves, and then other people on is like, do an evaluation of where you're currently at in your mind as far as like your daily, whether it be your occupation, your family, and say like, do I feel stuck? Do I feel like I'm going through the motions? Do I actually feel like I'm winning in these areas? And just be honest with yourself. And I would definitely say like have somebody in your world that you can actually bounce these things off of.
Mhm.
And then from there, when you have an evaluation of, okay, this is where I'm at, where do you want to go? Like set some objective goals out in front of you and see
Mhm.
those goals as like, this is my why I'm doing all these things. So if it's, I want to see my family, financially free, have some financial freedom the next 5 years, like then you
Mhm.
have somebody you can, find in your circle that's good with money and finances and help you plan towards that. And then your occupation, then it makes more sense to put in the grind every day. But if you don't have a goal out in front of you, just going through the motions, I think that mental struggle that so many people talk or work through every single day, it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can get out of that loop if you want to, but you're choosing not to every day because you don't do anything different. It's like insanity.
Yeah, if you're just doing the same thing over and over and over, yeah, it the definition is insanity. Like if you keep sticking your finger in the light socket, you're gonna get electrocuted. Like you do it once, okay, yeah, I learned my lesson. Now you do it twice, and you're like, yeah, you're stupid. So, um, yeah, I mean, for me, I do think that I'm not really in a rut, especially since I've got a lot of things going on, and we're helping out a lot in the Project Healing Waters thing, and we've got a lot of things coming up and a lot of events and whatnot. So I feel like that part is growing. I'm challenging myself with things at work. I'm challenging myself by going to school. Like I'm terrible at math, so
Mhm.
that is a challenge. And even in the welding class, I mean that's a huge challenge in itself because there's a bunch of them out there, but you can set yourself apart by you know putting in the work. Because I see a lot of students that go there, like attendance isn't mandatory. You don't have to be there every day. And day one we had tons of people in the class, and like yesterday there was hardly anybody there. And so the only way you're going to get better at doing something is, or the only way you're going to get better at something is by doing it, practicing it. Some people it comes naturally, some people it does not. Like running, it does not come naturally to me. I hate running, and in order to do well in running, I had to run a lot. So same thing, if you're not good at being a salesperson, maybe you got to just you got to grind, you got to keep doing it. And you with that, other people are going to see that determination. They're going to see that, like, hey, when I think of salesman, I think of a car salesman. You have that one guy that's just kind of out there like, yeah, hey, what's going on? Then you have the other guys that are out there that are like, they will not leave you alone, because they want to make
See
that
something I
sale.
like
Yeah, exactly. And so,
coffee.
and yeah, and no, I think we definitely should check ourselves. Like you said, have somebody there that's gonna be honest with you. That's not gonna be like, oh yeah, everything's great, you're doing great. No, we don't need to hear that crap. We don't need to be, things don't need to be sugar coated. At least for me, like I want to hear the honest truth. Like, hey man, you're sucking right now. You need to pick it up. And so then I know, okay, well, what do I need to do? Well, you could probably put a little more emphasis on this or that in your life at this point, whether it's your family or whether it's your work, or because for me, that you talk about that house out there in California, I think of when we moved to Texas. I want to have some land. I want to have, it'd be awesome to have 25, 50 acres, because then I can go into the woods, and that's my therapy right there. And I want my family to be over there because then we can enjoy the woods together. We can go do whatever, build a fort, go play hide and seek in the woods. I don't know, go do some battle drills, whatever type stuff. Um, but and that's the goal. Like, hey, I want some land and I want a decent house. So I have to now I have to, hey, I got to work, which is one of the reasons why I work, because hey, I need money to buy land and buy a property. So, um, and to make more money, I need to be educated a little bit more, but also um, train a little bit more, or practice what I'm doing to get better at it. Because people are like, hey, if you want to get X, Y, and Z done, go see that dude over there. He's on point. So, and if we don't do those things, then you're punching the clock. And to me, that just sounds like a miserable life to live.
I totally agree, and I think punching the clock does not stop at the job. It goes
No.
home with you. If you have the mentality there, I almost guarantee you that's what your home life looks like too. That's what your, vocation, or not your vocational, but your like hobby life and extracurricular, and the enjoyment level could be so much better than that. And you deserve better. Like, you are worthy of these things. And, people that listen to this podcast, for the most part, a lot of them are military or very, strong work ethic type people, but we tend to be some of the biggest, like, because we're so outgoing, so driven, we tend to beat ourselves up pretty easily as well.
Mhm.
And that's an area where I think we can all get better at, is, giving ourselves praise, stopping for a second, and, what, this face you're putting on, this game you're playing to think you have to be so strong in front of everybody else. I think it's honestly just crap. And if you check that for a second and, like, stopped and gave yourself praise here and there throughout the day, not just once or whatever, but, you open the door for somebody, like, I'm glad I'm able to do that. I can stop in life and open the door for somebody else. It's a small gesture, but, over time you start to build this practice up of actually giving yourself, the attaboys that are going to help sustain positive growth and positive mindset. And it's not anything big and grandiose. There's small incremental changes we can be making. And I think it'll lead to a big difference in a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, and the thing is that people are going to see that. It may not be everybody in the room that sees that, but there's going to be a select few people that do see that, and that's going to cause them to probably change. And that's, I try to do the same things, and I try to show people that there are still people that are respectful, that hold, doors open for people, man or woman, doesn't matter. Um, things like that, because that can affect other people. Instead of all we see is negativity everywhere, let's see some positive out there, because that could, that one little thing could actually change somebody's day, for the better.
Agreed. So I guess, yeah, and partially circling back and closing in a sense, like, I really want people to stop and ask why you're doing what you're doing. Like, legitimately take an inventory of why am I going through the motion right now of my job. Obviously family is one of those things that's a little bit rare area to say, why am I doing this? Like, why are you going through the motions of what you're doing? So with your spouse, is your spouse really the person you want to love? Like, the way you're loving them right now, is that really what you want them to have? Or is there a better version of you that you're not giving because you haven't applied yourself? Especially after a few years of marriage, you can kind of get complacent. And we've all been there, I'm sure. I've been there. And just now, when I started asking different questions within my marriage, even like, why am I doing the things I'm doing? And it's definitely getting better. And I can see it slowly. My wife might not always like scream from the rooftops, like, you're killing it. But I can tell, like, through small incremental changes when I get home, the approach, the things that are happening now, like, my energy levels affect my wife very, very quickly, and my kids very, very quickly. And that makes my life better as well. So it's a self-serving thing even too. So
Mhm.
I really want people to emphasize, like, this next week, to even for a second, stop and ask, why am I doing what I'm doing? And if you're really interested, I think the book by Simon Sinek, The Power of Why, it's a pretty remarkable read on life in general, and kind of
Mhm.
why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll have to put I guess, a link to it on Amazon or whatever. That way people can look it up. I've been trying to read the book that Pan recommended. The Body Keeps the Score, Keeps Score, or whatever.
Oh yeah, I haven't not read that one, but I do intend to get around to that for sure.
Yeah, so it I'm just barely into it right now, but the guy, he's an MD, and he's um, basically trying to figure out the, PTSD and neurosis, shell shock, or whatever, from Vietnam veterans. So,
Hmm.
and what's causing all these actions. Why are the people doing the things that they're doing? So yeah, it's so far it's interesting, and I just need to sit down and actually read it instead of doing other random things. So I see. I'm the shiny object kind of guy. Like,
I hear you.
yeah, yeah. I've been trying to. So I'm in the process of building a fly rod, for Project Healing Waters for our national competition. So that, and schoolwork and home life and soccer games and everything else. So it's there's a lot of stuff going on.
Sure. No, it makes. I'm in the same boat, and 2 or 3 pages a day sometimes is all I get. But yeah, it's a struggle. But I hear you. Yeah, I'm glad we got a finally got a chance to plug in again, and I missed hearing from you, and it's just something I look forward to doing. And I know a couple people have pinged me and asked what the heck's going on. Did you guys quit this nonsense or what? So
Yeah, yeah. My brother's like, "What? No episode this week or what, man?" I'm like, "Yeah, just calm down, you. Hold on." So
someone's non-military was like, "Hey, what is this? Rangers lead the way, except for when you don't feel like it. Like, what's the deal, man?"
only yeah, only every other week or so, you know.
Back to the private life of sua sponte. Do what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But hey,
Uh,
anyways, appreciate y'all. The time you guys spend with us. We don't get to see your faces and voices right in front of us, but we should do a live session. That'd be kind of cool. But I do the feedback we get is always good. I do get some pushback on some stuff, and I always feel off that stuff. So
yeah, I too have thought about a live session. I think that would be fun. We could prompt it. You know, hey, look, on this day and this time, we're gonna have a live session. We could do it kind of, you know, in the evening, I guess, and then people can yell at us or say whatever they want to say, and you know, I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be really cool.
I don't know if I'm mentally prepared quite yet, but give me another week or two, we'll get there.
Oh, I'm good. I don't care.
I'm just
Yeah.
joking.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, definitely good times.
Yeah, it's good to do an episode again. Finally, it felt like it's been a month or so, but yeah, and we'll definitely have another one next week. We promise. So, um, but yeah, that's all, folks, as they say on the Looney Tunes. So y'all have a great week, and don't forget to ask why. Why are you doing what you're doing? So y'all have a good one.
Peace.